Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and my guest today has not one, but two movies that are playing right now in theaters, and they make the perfect double feature. He has edited both Heart, Eyes, and Companion. I'm so excited to welcome Brett Bachman today. Brett, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for having me, Tim.
Well, thank you for being here. And just congratulations on this because I don't know the last time I've talked to someone who has had two projects in theaters at the exact same time. How does it feel to have both movies that you worked on available now for people to go see in theaters?
It feels pretty incredible. I never really envisioned a scenario like this kind of popping up when we were in production on both. I always kind of considered them as like sibling projects. They're both about couples, one in crisis and one in courtship. Tonally, they're really playful and adventurous, while still being like grounded emotionally. And there was a conversation about, I think, them both kind of competing for the same time frame when I was ending Companion and getting ready to start Hard Eyes. And it was really exhilarating. The prospect of the two of them coming out at the same time, the prospect that you could do a double feature of both. I've never experienced anything like that in my career. I don't think I will have another opportunity like that again in my life. One hopes, but I recognize it as an extremely rare and fortuitous thing.
So incredible. So the production timeline, they never overlapped with each other.
They never overlapped. It was kind of a perfect scenario, at least for me, because I Companion had a lot of starts and stops because we started shooting the movie in the summer of, I think, 2023. We got shut down because of the dual strikes. Uh, Movie got shut down, editorial got shut down for several months. Then I got a phone call. They're inviting me back once the strikes are resolved. We're going to resume shooting the movie. We're going to reopen up editorial. And I had one huge caveat. I was to my schedule. I was like, my wife and I are expecting twins in just a few months. So if I came on board, I would have to really find a substitute to take over for me halfway through director's cut, which is like a really sensitive point in the editing process. But fortunately for me, they were like, that sounds great. I'm sure we'll find a great sub. We did. We found an amazing sub and a buddy of mine, Josh Ethier, who took over for about a month and a half while I took my paternity leave. Um, Production invited me back to participate in the finishing of Companion, so I was there with Josh for the sound mix and for DI and finish finalizing visual effects and like one last week of the edit to like sit down with New Line and Warner Brothers and the producers and Drew, my director, to really like put the kind of the final thing on the edit. And then we wrapped. We got done with the movie. We and then Hard Eyes. I remember getting the phone call when I was in the recording session for the string section while our composer Rishi was doing the music for Companion. Get a phone call from my buddy Josh, who was like, "This, I have this other movie that's starting right away. It's starting like immediately. What are you doing this summer?" And so that process was like just a few weeks of like wrapping Companion, taking like a very quick break, and then moving into another editorial space across town to get Hard Eyes up and running. And that just kind of continued the process.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I was going to ask you what it was like working with another editor on Companion. So that's really fascinating to know because I was trying to figure it out in my head, like, did you guys break up scenes or did you edit, the first half and he did the second half? So that's really fascinating to know. But also, by the way, congratulations on the twins. That's so exciting.
Yeah, yeah, they're great little guys. I think things have worked out great schedule wise with kind of everything. And Josh is an ideal partner. I mean, both Joshes, Josh Rubin from Hard Eyes and Josh Ethier from Companion. It wasn't a kind of a stratified scenario where like, okay, I'm on at one point and then Josh is on kind of concurrently. It was one of the more seamless handoffs that I've ever had before. We're about 5, 6 weeks into the director's cut when Josh essentially takes over the editing room. And by this point, the film had gone through these really fun, interesting tonal changes where Drew and I are experimenting with some structural things, lifting some things out of the movie, playing needle drops, trying to find the right tone of the movie. And it was at a point where I think the movie was like really finding its unique language that Josh came in, he sat with us for like a week just to kind of shadow us in the back of the editing room, got a sense of like, okay, what's the vibe? Where are we in the process? What are you guys still trying to kind of figure out and explore? And after like him of sitting in the back and kind of just shadowing, asking questions, participating, tossing out the occasional idea, I took my leave, and so I'm way away for. I'm there for the birth of my children. I'm there for the first like few weeks, but occasionally I'm still like shooting Drew a text or Josh a text, being like, "How are things going? What's going on?" And then I was graciously allowed to leave the house a few times, like during those really sensitive first few weeks of the boy's life. And so I attended a few of the test screenings that they were doing. We had a kind of a larger friends and family at Warner Brothers that we did. That we had like 100 people show up or 50 people show up, and then we had a larger, big recruited screening where you bring on like 100 people. So being able to participate in those, even for a few hours to kind of listen to the feedback, toss some ideas around, it was wonderful to still participate in those discussions about the direction of the film, even though I wasn't physically there anymore during the days. And then, like I said, yeah, like after 6 weeks, paternity leave came to an end, and I was welcomed back into the room. And Josh had done such a wonderful job of curating the movie, making his own discoveries with Drew during that time, about finding really interesting solutions to challenges that Drew and I still hadn't figured out by the time I had left. So he had found some great needle drops. He had found some solutions to take out some time here or there, just to lift up the entire pace of the movie and keep everything buoyant and entertaining. Really ideal experience working with the guy, and I hope to do it again.
Oh, that's awesome. That's all wonderful to hear. So when you signed on for a companion, how much of the twists and turns of the plot did you already know before you started editing the film?
Oh, the entire thing. I mean,
Oh,
one
nice.
of the first things we do before we get hired onto a project is we read the script, and we talk about the experience and the story, the narrative, the tone with the director. So I had like lengthy conversations with Drew even before I got started on the film about not only how to how Drew wanted the audience to feel during some of these twists and turns, but largely about his implication, his ideas about the film itself. Whether it be tone, whether it be about character, whether it be about specific beats, the feeling that he wants you to have leaving the theater. I love having these introductory conversations with the director, largely because I view myself as their right hand in the process. I'm trying to retain a sense of objectivity as well when I'm collaborating and curating a film and assembling it. But I also want to I want to understand what the director is going for. I don't want to be a voice of someone being contrary in the room. I want to be, if I'm offering feedback, I want to make sure it's productive and it's constructive. So having these initial conversations with the director are really informative to get a sense of like, what are you going for? What's the vibe? And with these big twists and turns, it was really clear that like even when I read these things on a script level, they were so exciting and invigorating. I had no idea where that first time reading the script, I had no idea where the story was going. And I think that's immediately when I knew, like, oh, this feels like it's something special. It's entertaining. If I'm reacting this way, just reading the script, what is it going to be like for an audience in a theater to experience this for the first time with actors who are bringing this to life?
Yeah. I had a very full audience for both films, and both audiences for Heart Eyes and for Companion were very reactive to all the
Oh, good.
kills and all the jokes because both of them have like the perfect balance of comedy and horror. When editing these films, how did you find the perfect balance between the horror side and the comedy side?
That's a great question. It's a bit of a hit or miss thing. It's a bit of kind of feeling out the film gradually. It's a bit of it's a process, quite frankly. It's nothing that we get. I think clicks into place like right away. Even with phenomenal actors and a great script, there's still a discovery process where you're figuring out what really works well about the material, what works best, what's the right rhythm for this stuff. And so the first time we assembled the movie together, which was like the summer of 2023 before we got shut down first with the strikes. Drew had a different vision of the movie. He envisioned something that was, I think, a little less comedic, something a bit more dry, something that felt a bit more kind of like a serious Coen Brothers film that eventually kind of goes off the rails. And it wasn't until we got shut down and we take a break that Drew begins to show the cut to a lot of his close friends and trusted colleagues. And so when he calls me back up to say, hey, we're going to resume shooting this movie, he says, by the way, I have been thinking a lot about the direction of the movie. I want to liven everything up. I want something that's a little bit more self aware, something that's more broad, feminine, something that it's okay being a bit more comedic, something that can just allows you to have a lot of fun with it. And that was a breath of fresh air because it meant that I could go back and evaluate performances that previously we'd left on the cutting room floor, for being a little bit too big, or maybe these are too silly. We went back and we started, reinvesting in some of this material that we had not really considered the first time. So we're bringing in a lot more improv. We're bringing in something that just feels a little bit more kinetic and jubilant and buoyant. And that was really exciting to manipulate all of that and see how it works with an audience. But back to your question about the entire, crafting of all of that. Like I said, it's a bit of a process. So you are trying a lot of things out at first, and um, your audience might be surprised to learn this, but like not everything fully finds that right rhythm at first. The pace may not be all there. It sometimes things can feel a little lethargic or long, which is not the fault of the script because the script was fantastic, one of the better things I've read. It's just kind of the natural ebb and flow of working on your first rough cut, which can be, I think for us it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes, something like that first like full cut, and you're trying to find the right wavelength, the right tone. And so it's a process of just distilling, what is working really well about this. And that's a process of just watching the rough cut, observing your own emotional reactions to the material, asking why do I feel this way? Do I feel compelled? Do I feel intrigued? Or am I bored? Am I checking out? Do I not believe what I'm watching? So constantly evaluating your own reactions, making little suggestions or little changes either in omitting lines or swapping an actor's performance or nudging the tone one way or the other with a piece of music, whether that be score or whether that be a needle drop, and just constantly evaluating and refining the process as you watch yourself, but you're also showing it to, in these little friends and family screenings we'll be doing to evaluate where is an audience feeling like they're up and where are they feeling like they're kind of checking their watches. And that's a constant process, and that can take weeks.
So for Companion specifically, what was the trickiest scene for you to edit when you're holding back information from the audience and, kind of trickling the plot details to them without giving everything away all at once?
Great question. The first 20 minutes, I think, are always pretty challenging when you're doing a movie because you're trying to set the tone, you're trying to bring the audience into the character's world, build empathy for these individuals and these characters, but also keep the movie moving at a fast enough pace that your audience is still leaning forward and they want to participate and they want to know what happens next. There's a lot of things that have to happen in those first 20 minutes um, on the road to making it a great film. And so I think a lot of our time was spent to um, find the right balance of Iris. Like, how do you tell her story, bring an audience into her perspective, make us feel the love that she has for Josh, but also the anxiety she has about fitting in? How do you build respect and empathy for her, see things from her perspective, while also establishing all of your supporting cast. So meeting Josh, meeting Eli, meeting Patrick, getting a sense of like what their vibe is, what are they about, what are their objectives, what are in the way of those objectives, establishing the plot, the tone, and it really all kind of culminates in the end of your first act. That's really what you're building to. Seemingly every movie that you're working with is like, how do you get the audience to that end of those first 20 minutes and that first act twist? Um, that launches into the rest of the movie. And for us, that scene was the lakeside scene. That was the scene where Iris is down in the lake, Sergei comes down, and there's an attack. And we had worked on this particular scene, I think, the most out of the entire movie because it's all about timing. It's
Right.
all about subverting expectations, but also paying off some of those expectations that you do have. Um, I'll get in a little bit in the spoilers here, not too much, just because the marketing even kind of reveals the twist. But Iris is a robot.
Mhm.
Iris is, attacked. She's a sex robot, and she's attacked by a man, this Russian billionaire, on the shores of a lake because he assumes that he's been kind of set up to. I digress. So there's this attack scene, and you are in Iris's point of view on the shore of the lake, and then
Mm.
you are cutting upstairs to the aftermath, and you're seeing Iris covered in blood and all of her friends reacting to the carnage. And we decided to tell this story from an editorial perspective, kind of out of order. So you're on the lake shore, then you're upstairs in the house, half an hour later, then you're back downstairs as Iris is telling the story. And that became a constant revision process to figure out how do we stay ahead of the audience, and keep them leaning forward and keep the tension up, but also divulge enough information where it doesn't feel like you are ever bored being in one place or the other. How do you maintain that threat, maintain that tension, but keep things constantly rising in terms of their narrative intrigue?
Mhm.
And so we returned to that respective scene, reshuffling the intercutting for I think a few months. We would do a pass on it, go work on something else, and then like a week later, we would return to that lakeside scene, return to the attack, show it to people, ask like, when is the right time to cut upstairs? When is it the right time to reveal Iris covered in blood and her holding the knife and then cut back down? And we constantly shuffle that order to, see the optimal version of that for, like I said, for quite a while to find the right beat.
Oh my gosh. Well, it worked perfectly, and I loved the reveal. I loved that scene. Everything just fit together perfectly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of it, and it appears that like it's certainly getting the reaction that we want.
Yeah.
I wish you guys could have been there to see it, like in the test screenings when no one knew what the movie was about. Like there
Mhm.
was no premise, there was no synopses online, no trailers, and so you're in this very clean experience with a brand new audience. And for the Josh holding her and yelling, "Iris, go to sleep," and you see the eyes glaze over. Almost no one was expecting that.
Oh
I
my
think there were
gosh.
maybe a few Sherlocks that kind of put things together because there's certainly hints. You go back and you watch the first 20 minutes and you
Yeah.
see little things were teeing up that suggest, Iris isn't all she is.
Mhm.
But 95% of the audience have no clue that's coming. And there's a collective gasp in the audience. And there was always one person in the crowd that was like, yo, like, what? Like someone screaming. And the film has enough twists and turns that even though that beat in the trailer got revealed, there's still a few other moments later in the movie that, now has that reaction or that reveal is even bigger because you're not
Yeah.
expecting it at all.
No, I totally agree. Because when I saw the second trailer that reveals that she's a robot, I was like, uh-oh, was that like, the big reveal of the movie? But then I went in, saw the movie, and I was like, oh no, there's a lot more to
Oh yeah.
discover. So I was very happy with that there were more twists that weren't revealed in the marketing.
Oh yeah, but that's only your 20-minute thing. That's
Yeah.
the end of the first act. That's like this is yes what this movie is about,
Mhm.
and it's a challenging movie to market. So I understand the need to like okay, you got to give the audience a reason to show up to the theater. Like what is this? What is the movie about? At its core, it's about a woman that discovers that she's not a person, and you are asked to empathize with her and follow her journey more than you are all the humans at
Yeah.
said resort.
And then speaking of Heart Eyes, that movie I love. I think maybe my favorite movie of the year so far. They're
Oh
both like, but I think Heart Eyes was just fantastic because I love slasher films. So I think that's what like gives it the little bit of an edge because I just love the genre. And I thought Mason was incredible in it. I think he's just so charming and the perfect fit for this role.
wow.
And it's the same thing with Companion where it's, like a romantic comedy type thing, horror, comedy, romance, all blended together perfectly. Did you have a favorite scene that you got to edit for Heart Eyes?
Oh, great question. I love the restaurant scene between Allie and
Mhm.
Jay, where Jay has set up like this conference that he's going to sit down with Allie and talk about this failed advertising campaign that she set up. He is obviously smitten with her. She is resistant, but still, obviously, it's pretty clear if you watch the movie that she's attracted to this guy. But she has all her defenses up. This is a work. She said, "This is a work meeting. I am focused trying to recover my career, which has gone into shambles after this disastrous campaign." So you have the meeting of these two individuals. The dramatic stakes are pretty clear, and I think a lot of the audience is surprised by how long the scene is, and how grounded we play it. It's certainly moments are played for laughs, and there's some more traditional broad humor in the scene, but like it's really Allie getting on her soapbox, kind of saying like what she's about and why she's resistant to like a lot of these advances that Jay is making, and it's just two people in a room talking with clear dramatic objectives, a really fun script and two great performances. As fun as can be to like really make a lot of these traditional slasher beats or manufacture a jump scare or to work on a scene like the drive-in where you have all this scope and hundreds of extras and big action and huge music. Sometimes my favorite thing to do are just like these little scenes between two actors who are just going off of one another, great chops and good writing.
When editing Hard Eyes, since you're trying to keep the reveal of who is behind the mask
Mhm.
secret, how did that affect the editing process?
Good question. We excised a little bit of material that kind of tease the audience one way or the other. There's a few deleted scenes if we had decided to include these. I think kind of tipped our hat a little bit more. Um, I mean, it's not exactly so hard to figure out who it is. A lot of people do guess correctly, but that's also one of I think the fun things about a whodunit structure is you want the audience to guess. You don't want to give like it would be no fun to like have a film where it's impossible to guess who the suspect is because then the audience isn't participating. I love Agatha Christie adaptations and books, and sometimes when you get into like Poirot talking about like, oh, this is how the killer did it. It's like, how was I supposed to guess any of this? Like, this is
Yeah,
impossible. Like, this is just, it feels like the author just like, "Okay, here's the Deus Ex Machina to explain it all. And those things, oh, they felt, fun to follow, but like, I don't feel like I could be a true participant in this because how are you going to guess that?
yeah.
But what I really like about, and this is kind of my second who done it with Josh Rubin, we've made it the point that we want you to guess, constantly who it is. And so we don't mind if you guess early, and because you odds are you might change your idea. I did a movie with him called Werewolves Within a few years ago, where we have a lot of red herrings, and some of the red herrings early on point you directly who the killer is. And we found in the testing process that, like, even though a sizable portion of the audience kind of guessed correctly who the killer was, they changed their minds. Like 20 minutes later, like half an hour later, they were like, "I liked that person as a suspect, but now I think I like this person more." And that's a process we welcome, we encourage, we want you to participate and have fun with it. So it's a little bit like it's a little bit again of kind of a refining process, not to reveal too much, keep things a little ambiguous, keep things tense. But again, that goes back to the testing process. It goes
Yeah.
back to friends and family showing the movie in front of people and just having a discussion with them afterwards, and then making little decisions. Maybe we remove this scene, remove this line, remove any kind of music that might push an agenda one way or the other, make things feel more harrowing. Um, but yeah, it's always a fun process because you're always trying to stay like one step ahead of the audience, but hold their hand a little bit at the same time.
No, that's awesome to learn about. Since Heart Eyes is a slasher film, I was wondering who some of your favorite iconic horror slashers are.
Oh, damn. Great question. Okay, well, I was a 90s kid. I grew up really avoiding almost all horror as a teenager. I was always a sucker for like monster movies and more paranormal kind of leaning stuff. Terrified of ghost stuff, but in terms of slashers, like Scream, I think was the first slasher that really got me to appreciate how these things were constructed, how they were crafted. I was surprised how satirical the entire thing was when I first got around to seeing it, how meta it was, how buoyant and fun. I mean, yes, certainly there are some really harrowing, scary sequences in the film, and it doesn't shy away from gore, but like it was more preoccupied with you having a good time. So I revisit Scream, I revisit Ghostface, I think once every year just to put this thing on to revisit it because it's still fun, it's still enjoyable, it's still a romp, never takes itself too seriously, and it has that magical wavelength of being scary, funny, and endearing and rewatchable. It's so rare you find any of those in any film, let alone a horror film. So
Yeah, Scream is my favorite horror franchise, so I love all of them like as if they're my own children. I love them all the same,
yeah,
and I'm so excited to see what they're going to be doing with Scream 7. So every day there's like more casting announcements that I can't figure out how they're going to piece this all together. It's like blowing my mind the people that they're bringing back. So
I don't know
I
either.
can't wait to see.
Same thing. I'm like, how do you have enough scenes to fit all these people in?
Yeah, very true. Before we go, I just wanted to bring up The Toxic Avenger, which I know you
Oh yeah.
also edited. And it was just recently announced, I think like within the past couple weeks, that it's going to finally have its theatrical release through Cineverse. And I was just wondering how it feels to finally know that fans are going to be able to experience this film that you edited in theaters after, it was unsure of what its future was going to be.
Um, it's a huge breath of fresh air. It's a huge relief, and it's wonderful to know that I think we have a partner that really believes in the movie. It's odd because so much of the dialogue that existed around the movie when it was finished, and we did Fantastic Fest, and we there was like a little teaser that was released, but it still didn't really show you a whole lot about the movie. There was a lot of discussion with fans online being like, does the movie stay true to its roots? Is it a trauma movie first and foremost? Or is it we're not a big budget movie by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but like, did they sell out? Is it a Hollywood film that you just slap the Toxic Avenger name on there and you have some famous actors? And I love the discussion that came out afterwards because there was a hard go for a while. We didn't know the future of the movie.
Yeah.
We opened Fantastic Fest, we played at Beyond Fest, we melted down the theater, the Aero Theater when we played at Beyond Fest. A lovely reception to the movie. It's made for trauma fans, and I think a lot of studios were just like, "What is this?" Like you have a scene with Toxie punching into someone's small intestines, grabbing them, ripping them throughout the sphincter, yelling, "Give me your lunch!" Like this is the type of movie that we've made. Proudly so. Macon knows exactly his audience for this movie. He loves the films. He loves anything trauma. He's the perfect captain on this ship. And I'm really excited that people are going to see this unadulterated, unprocessed, unrated version of the movie because it's made for them. It's made to get together with your friends, made to get together with your buddies. It's made in poor taste. It's campy. It's stupid. It's bombastic. It's so over the top. It's going to melt your brain. We found great partners for it. It is a miracle that we've made the film that we have, and I think we finally found the best partner for it. It was too scary for I think for your Warner Brothers and for for
Oh
your
my gosh.
Universals. They had no idea what this movie was. You know.
Well, congratulations on that because I know people, like some of my friends, were able to go see it at those screenings at Beyond Fest and
Mm.
Fantastic Fest. And I was so jealous because I was like, well, what if I never get to see it? So I am so excited that I'm going to be able to go check it out in a theater. And yeah, just congratulations because I know how stressful that must be to not know something that you spent so much of your life on,
Yeah.
editing and working on if people aren't going to get to see it. So it's, yeah, congratulations on the release that it's going to have in theaters.
Thank you so much. I quite ecstatic to get an opportunity to see it again and for it to like finally come out to like the general public. I mean, it's wonderful to be in Austin. It's wonderful to be in Los Angeles, us to see these things, but like it's made for fans. It's made for people to, watch this thing together and celebrate it and have a great Friday or Saturday night. And I'm so happy summer release that it's going to get the opportunity to do that.
Oh, that's great. Well, Brett, where would be a good place for people to follow you if they want to keep up with all your upcoming projects?
Good question. I'm really just on Instagram these days. So Brett W. Bachman, my handle. I'm on there. I post stuff, I guess, relatively frequently.
All right, I'll make sure to put a link to your Instagram in the description of this video. But Brett, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And just congratulations on all of these projects that you have. Hard Eyes Companion, The Toxic Avenger. Just huge fan of your work. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here.
Much appreciated. Thank you for having me, Taylor.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.